In the last lecture, we introduced vectors with the bold promise that they were going to tell us something about matrices. So in this lecture, we're going to introduce something called a linear combination that's going to establish that connection. Okay, so I've got the definition here. So to make a linear combination, we're going to start with a set of vectors and a corresponding set of scalars called the weights. Now remember, a scalar is just a regular individual number. So the vector that we get by taking each of the original vectors, multiplying it by its corresponding weight, and adding those vectors together is what we call a linear combination of the original set. Okay, so let's look at a concrete example. Suppose I have these two vectors, 2, 2, 4, and 3, negative 1, 5. So m is equal to 2, because we have two vectors, and these vectors have three variables each, so they both come from R3. So I want to make it just a linear combination, just to illustrate what one is. So suppose I start with this combination here. So my A1 is 3, my A2 is negative 2. I've multiplied them by their respective vectors, and now I'm going to do the arithmetic, right? If I replace u and v with their individual vectors, then I multiply by the scalars, so the vectors become 6, 6, 12, and negative 6, 2, negative 10. Add them component-wise, and we get this new vector, 0, 8, negative 2. 0, 8, negative 2 is a linear combination of the original vectors u and v. Here for us to think about. And when we're done, I'm going to use the results of this to illustrate the connection that I promised on the previous slide. So I have this vector b and two other vectors u and v. And my question is, can I write b as a linear combination of u and v? So remember what a linear combination is. That means taking the u and the v, multiplying each one of them by a number, and adding them up. Right? So the question is, and I'm going to make this into an equation here, can I find numbers x1 and x2 such that when I do that operation on u and v, the result is equal to b? Okay, so here's how I'm going to approach this. First, I'm going to combine all the vectors on the left side into one. I'm going to bring the x1 and the x2 into their individual vectors, and then do the vector addition, right? We add them component-wise. When I do that, I get this equation. X1 plus 4x2, negative 2x1 minus x2, and so on, is equal to the vector b. Now, remember, for two vectors to be equal, their individual components have to be equal. All right, so what this is saying is I need x1 plus 4x2 to equal negative 10. Those are the first components. Negative 2x1 minus x2 to equal negative 1. And 2x1 plus 6x2 to equal negative 14. Okay, now I have a system of linear equations. So I'm going to do what we did in the first section. I'm going to take this, I'm going to turn it into an augmented matrix, and I'm going to do the row reduction algorithm. And if we apply the Gaussian elimination algorithm that, again, we talked about in the previous lectures, we get this solution. x1 equals 2, x2 equals negative 3. And you can check this, right? You go back to the very original vector equation, substitute 2 and 3 in there for x1 and x2, work out the left-hand side, and yeah, it does become equal to negative 10, negative 1, negative 14. Okay, here's the connection. Okay, we started off with this vector equation. We translated into this system of linear equations, which has this as its augmented matrix. Okay, so now let's trace what happened to each of the original vectors. Not surprisingly, those became the vectors in the vector equation, which then became the coefficients in the system of linear equations, which then became the entries, the elements of the augmented matrix. We can make this even more explicit, right, by writing that augmented matrix in terms of the original vectors. I'm going to put u in place of 1, negative 2, 2, v in place of 4, negative 1, 6, and b in place of negative 10, negative 1, negative 14. Now, hopefully you see the connection, right, between this idea of a linear transformation and a matrix. That's what we saw on the last slide. Right? If we start with a vector equation, then that vector equation is going to have the same solution as the system of linear equations whose augmented matrix has its columns made up of the vectors from the vector equation. In other words, B can be written as a linear combination of the vectors v1 through vn if and only if the solution of the system of linear equations given by the corresponding augmented matrix also has a solution. This more concrete, and actually we're actually going to expand on this idea of a linear combination by instead of looking at an individual linear combination of a set of vectors, we're going to look at the set of all linear combinations of those vectors, and that's what we call the span. Right, so the span of a set of vectors, v1 through vm, is the set of all vectors that can be written in this form here on the middle line. And the form on that middle line, that's a linear combination, right? So in other words, the span of a set of vectors is the set of all linear combinations of those vectors. But so far, our approach to linear combinations and the spans has been very algebraic. Right, we defined a linear linear combination in terms of an equation, right, with vectors and scalars, and we've also really defined the span very algebraically as well. Well, we can also interpret this span geometrically, right? So just for an example, let's say we have a single vector in R3, three-dimensional space, and I want to talk about what the span of this vector looks like. Well, if the original vector looks, let's say it looks like this one here, and to get the span, what am I going to do? Well, there's only the one vector, so all I'm going to do is multiply it by scalars, right? So if I multiply it by positive numbers, I get these bigger vectors going in the same direction. If the scalar is between 0 and 1, I'll actually get a smaller vector, but it's still going in the same direction. If we multiply by a negative number, then we have the same geometric effect, but the vectors are going in the other direction. All right, so what can we say about the span of a single vector in R3? Well, it's going to be a line. Geometrically, it's going to be a line. Okay, so let's say we expand on this. Let's say instead of thinking about the span of one vector, we think about the span of two. Oh, what's that going to look like? Well, again, let me add a hypothetical second vector here. And what we want to do is multiply these two vectors by scalars and add them together. Remember, adding vectors, we have this parallelogram rule. So if I add these two vectors together, the result is going to be this vector here. Then let's say just hypothetically, if I multiply the lower vector by, say, 2, keep the upper vector as it is and add them together, well, that lower vector extends out and the new sum looks like this. Right, we have similar effects if we let some of these numbers be negative. Right, we get vectors going in the other direction. So ultimately, what is this span going to look like? Well, the span of these two vectors is going to end up being a plane. It's going to be a plane in R3. Okay, so supposed to go one more step. What does the span of three vectors look like? Well, this is trickier to draw, right? The span of three vectors in R3 it is going to be all of R3. It's going to be all of that three-dimensional space. Details that I kind of politely glossed over in my geometric description. Right? Say, for example, we have these two vectors here. Right? Well, if you look closely, you'll see that V is actually a multiple of U. Right? V is equal to 2 times U. That means any linear combination of U and V is actually just U times a scalar multiple. Right? So the span of these two vectors is actually, equivalent to the span of any one of them individually, which, as we saw previously, right, that's going to be a line. Okay, and we run into a similar issue if we try to do two vectors. Take three vectors. If we take these three vectors, for example, it may not be immediately obvious, but you can check this. W is a linear combination of U and V, right? And because W is that linear combination, this is just like we had in the previous case. This is effectively the span of two vectors. So geometrically, this span is also going to be a plane. You get the idea? We've opened up a whole can of worms here, right? What does the span look like? How can I tell when the span is going to depend on the full set of vectors, or when is it going to only depend on a subset of the set of vectors? Right? Those are the kinds of questions that we're going to address in the upcoming lectures, and we're going to tie them back to the question, to another question we've taken up before, and that's going to continue to be something we discuss throughout the rest of the class. That's the question of when does a system of linear equations A have solutions, and B, when does it have a unique solution?